Welcome, friends. We are here at #Humanity, where my dear friend Barry and our wonderful guest Hilary will be speaking to you about a wonderful topic. I'm not going to unfold it just yet, but to give you a little hint, here at #Humanity, we talk about the advancement of individuals to the collective, about things which help the rest of us grow and thrive and unfold wings, right? So, my name is Russell, and I am based in Madrid, Spain. I work in the sphere of silk mentoring, which talks about nobility in the advancement of women and girls. I also collaborate with Giving Women in Switzerland, which we help capacity building for Africa and parts of the Middle East. I also collaborate with the Soroptimists of the Philippines, and this is in the education of girls. So as you can see, it's all about girls and women for me. But before I go into my whole soapbox, Barry, please take it away. Welcome, everybody. This is #Humanity.
It is indeed. My name is Barry Lewis Green, aka Tug, the Unity guy with Epic Engage. What the heck does that mean? If I'm going to use the terminology of Simon Sinek, my just cause is humans together strong, the unity of humankind. And the way I approach it is by exploring character, purpose, and unity as three forces for that. This show is really the flagship of all the conversations we have, and I am really excited about this conversation. Our guest today, I met at a Virtues Project conference and immediately knew that I wanted them on as a guest. And then we had a subsequent conversation. So we've got Hilary Bilbery, based out of Tennessee, correct? Yes.
Just barely.
Barely. Okay, you'll inform us of that in a second. But Hilary, what I do know of you now, you are an author. You've written a book called The Authenticity Key, which I'm very curious about to get into as being human and what does it mean to be authentically human. A speaker, a master facilitator. I'm presuming that's for the Virtues Project.
It is.
Absolutely. So we share that in common. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And we always start with the $64,000 question, which is for people who are watching, Hilary, I cannot do justice to introducing you. I would like you to introduce yourself to those who may be watching.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. Well, I feel like you said so much. I think some of the things that define who I am are really about what I bring to the different things I do. So I would say I'm somebody who strives for integrity. And that means trying to really pause and think in my life about where there is alignment in showing up with love, with vulnerability, seeking to have dignity for the people around me and myself. And truly, I'm one of those people, I love meeting people where they are. And that's in the form of education. I've been an educator my whole life, high school education to now I do a lot of corporate training with my company Peak Performance, my partner Sonia Montiel as well. And the book, all of it is really about being insatiably curious and knowing that we are constantly growing. And that's a gift. The fact that so my kids, my children, they bring me so much joy because every day I'm learning more from them. Even though they're 24, 22, and 20 now, I cannot even handle that. But watching them navigate the world encourages me to be able to also navigate the world in a way that I hope will make them proud. Uh, Again, showing up with as much love and joy as I can.
Wow. You've just given me a new term. I always describe myself as robustly curious. Maybe I'm insatiably curious. I
I
love
love
that. Um, I've got plenty of follow-up questions, but let's get into, if I may, let's get into this thing about authenticity.
Yeah.
And let's explore what that might look like. Because I said to Russell before we went on air, I, you know, I don't know if I'm struggling with authenticity. I think I'm who I am, but what does that even mean?
Mm.
What is it to be authentic as a human being?
Yeah. Oh, do you hear that big sigh and cleanse the breath? That's a little bit about authenticity. So
Hmm.
I have this, I guess what's coming to me right now as you ask that question is I have so many people that come to me and they talk about imposter syndrome. And I am so
Right.
against this idea of imposter syndrome because I feel like we're
Right.
giving it too much power.
Mm.
I just don't even want it. I think when we name things, we give them power. And so, imposter syndrome, we as humans, I don't think that we fake it until we make it. I think we practice it until we become it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, no, absolutely. And so the thing is that we move the goalposts on ourselves until we actually pause for a moment, sit with ourselves. And this is controversial,
Okay.
but I think it is, how do I want to show up? Who do I want to be in this world? And how can I live that in a way that is in alignment? And so I look at that, in the book we talk about this authenticity compass. It's your map, your way of when you get off track, you can find your way back. So authenticity to me is when I take care of the care and keeping of myself so that I can show up the way that I have with discernment decided is my path in this world. It can look different in different ways in different areas. And I've had people, I have this story I tell in the book, and it really happened. After I was talking about authenticity, a guy came up to me and kind of cornered me at a happy hour after this presentation. And he's like, I think that if you have to decide who you're going to be, then that's not authentic. And I said, whoa, 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 wait. You need to listen a little bit more carefully to what I said. I don't think that you're your authentic self if you show up in the morning and you are a crab and mean and horrible to everybody. I think something else is getting in the way. You haven't slept, you're hangry, you're whatever else. I think the things that pull us off our compass are the things that are inauthentic. And when we tell people, oh, you know what, today's a rough day for me, that is more authentic than I'm just going to show up as my authentic self and whatever I say, just deal with it. I think those decisions that we make help us to really be able to know that we're showing up honestly. Anything else is getting in the way of it.
Hmm.
I love that. I've got more that I want to ask, but Russell, I see your wheels
Yeah,
turning.
so Hilary, you mentioned integrity, vulnerability, and dignity. I think because when I think of authenticity, I think of it as a multi-layered concept. It's not just a one little word which encompasses the entire universe kind of thing. So if it is a multi-layered concept, I think what you mentioned are all of those. But also, I would like to include, with your permission, the concept of trustworthiness, which
Yeah.
is I'm a trustworthy person, then I will always choose, for example, reliability and dependability over my own self-interest. So I always show up. What I say is what I do, right? Or also the concept of truthfulness, which is I have to always choose to align with the truth versus my own self-interest again. And on maybe, because this idea of, oh, maybe I don't tell the truth now because I will be harmed, as opposed to always telling the truth because that is the most authentic version of me, then that is like a higher self concept, right? And you mentioned vulnerability and integrity, sure. And there's another one I wanted to inject inside um your blanket word, right? Is transparency, that we don't hide any any section of anything. Rather, we live in the most open, dignified, you know, um, not public way, but just open, right? And the reason I'm saying this is because I think I think authenticity has people try to narrow it down too much. But the practice of it is so much more, and you've mentioned most of those. But the truth of it, I think, also is it's very hard to truly be authentic in a world which does not want it because it is so hard, right? Or it is so complex to be authentic. You're almost swimming against the tide. so I'm just throwing all of these things out there at you, and then you can pull it apart and attack sections of it how you like. But I just think wait, Hilary, thank you for the book first and foremost, right? Because there's so many. It's not an easy topic to tackle, right? And attempting to break it apart is such a noble, noble deed, I think. Sorry. So there's no question.
Just a lot to munch on here.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I will actually say that trustworthiness. So 2 points that I would love to come back to. The one is the trustworthiness, and so I want to make sure that we start there. And then I do want to put a pin in transparency. So if I get off, can we come back to transparency for a second? That would be awesome. Thank you. I have to make sure because otherwise I'm going to wander all over the place. So I actually trustworthiness is at the foremost of everything in this book, actually, and it begins with self-trust because that is actually the grounding concept behind all of this. And there's something that I call the confidence gap. I was noticing that there were, and I've done this work for about 20 years, but I've done corporate work for about the last 5. And oftentimes I get brought in, and they coined me, the corporations did, not me, the trust catalyst. Because when I came in, somehow, for some reason, things shifted and changed because of how they started talking to each other. And I was like, hee, I know what's going on, but and it had to do with this authenticity, this invitation to show up, this invitation to have conversations, true conversations about what was meaningful to us. I don't believe that you can be truly trustworthy until you trust yourself. And you can't trust yourself until you take the time to stop moving the goalposts. So I have these 2 concepts I call one, and it's familiar. There's other things out there that are similar. You'll see, and I always say that that feels like Atomic Habits. James Clear has something similar to what I'm about to say. Sometimes there's just universal truths. So I think what it is when we feel not enough or too much, then we set the perfect goal for ourselves. I will be enough when, it will be right when. And we set these goals for ourselves and they're extrinsic. And we don't always have control over the extrinsic, what someone else says, a title, whatever those things might be. And so when we set a perfect goal, perfect we know doesn't exist. So we've already pre-failed in some ways. And then we go, see, I told you, self, you aren't worthy, you aren't trustworthy, you aren't any of these things. It makes you question yourself again, and you get in this downward spiral, confidence gap, and you don't have an anchor, a place to stand, this foundation to show up. Now, when you get vulnerable and you know all of the things and you're working, you're practicing to get better. You're not saying, I have to be perfect. You say, I am someone who has integrity. I say what I mean, I do what I say, for example. So I start with that. That's the part of the claiming the words. I start with that. And because of that, I do this. Because I do this, I keep my promises to myself. Because I keep my promises to myself, I'm trustworthy. Because I am trustworthy, that worthiness allows me to now ascend in my confidence and show up in a way that is stronger. It doesn't mean perfect, but it does mean that I can stand. Maybe I'm going to shake a little bit, but I have a pretty firm foundation there that to always come back to.
Right. Nice.
I love that. You said stick a pin in transparency. How do those I used to teach strategic management at the college level. And at the very beginning of the course, we would talk about transparency and trustworthiness as important commodities in business that businesses that are trustworthy are also transparent. I don't know how true that is. I don't know what the link is, but talk to us a little bit about transparency and its role in fostering trustworthiness, if you will.
Well, here's a little maybe controversy for you. I believe transparency is 2 ways. I actually really get very, very frustrated with people who say things like, my boss isn't transparent. To me, if you're really, really going to, words matter. We know this, Virtues Project, we know words matter. When you say transparency, do you mean they didn't tell you something you wanted to know, or do you mean they're hiding something? Because there's a difference.
Yeah.
Because it's on me when I say, you're not being transparent. Well, did I ask the question? Did I seek clarity? Was I trying to understand, or am I being a victim in a relationship and saying it's all on you to make sure that you're open? So transparency for me is a very just like authenticity is multi-leveled. Transparent is, yes, if I'm not being transparent because I'm trying to hide something. But oftentimes I find in companies, it's not that someone isn't trying to be transparent. It never occurred to them that the other person was wondering. So you have to ask the question. So I feel like transparency and clarity and curiosity are commingled together.
Mhm.
I dig that. Yeah. So curiosity, there's a responsibility on those of us in organizations to ask appropriate questions so that we open the door for somebody to be transparent. Because to your point, and if I'm hearing correctly, if I'm managing a work team, I can't be thinking all the time, was I transparent there? Was I transparent? But if I'm prepared to answer legitimate questions, then I'm being transparent. That makes so much more sense to me because there's a lot to carry in the head to say, was I transparent there? Was I transparent there? And maybe those of us that are working for others need to be able to ask appropriate, curious questions. I like that. I like
I'm
that
a
a lot.
huge believer in personal accountability because that's what I have control over. And so a lot of these things that are out there in businesses, the DISC assessments, the Colbys, the strength finders, all of those, I hear everybody, not everybody, oftentimes I'll hear people saying, yeah, the manager should keep that in a file so they know how to interact with each and every person. And I always sit there and I think my heart just goes out to that manager. Try to be the best manager you can. And it is my personal responsibility to take those assessments and be able to ask for what I need, to advocate for what I need, to be able to stand in that and to help my manager, and to manage up in some ways. And I think if we all took some personal accountability, we would see such a huge shift in the way that trust happens and the way that companies, in the way that world, country, all of those things go.
Yeah,
But it's the personal accountability first.
absolutely.
May
Russell.
I ask a question? Okay. I was behind you are images of three of your books, no? And the title is Authenticity Key. So I'm wondering, it's a key to what, and what door are you trying to open? And why are you trying to step through that?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. There's no door. It's not that type of key. So if you'll notice behind me, there's a compass. And the compass, you'll love this, Barry. Russell, I'm not sure if you're involved in the Virtues Project.
No.
Okay.
I'm
Not
just
yet.
I am aware of it,
Yeah.
but I have been studying it on an individual level only.
Yeah. So the authenticity key, the subtitle is Claim Your Words, Set Your Compass, Blaze Your Trail. And the if you look at the compass that is on there, it's sitting on top of a topographic map.
Yeah, I can see
You
that.
you have the compass, it's set to purpose is your North Star, then excellence is east, wonder is west, and service is south. And the book has you go through and set your own compass so that you know the direction you're going. The key is the legend. Without the legend, without the key that helps you understand, what does that mean? What does purpose look like to you? What does service look like to you? I can't know that I'm in alignment until I have followed that legend, that topographic map to blaze my trail.
Hmm.
Because respect might be different to me than it is for you. So I have to claim those words and I have to be able to really understand what that means, what it looks like to know that I'm truly living in a trustworthy, authentic, integrated, aligned way.
Right.
What are the four directions on the compass again? Purpose, service, excellence, and I've missed the fourth one.
Wonder.
Wonder. I was
Yes.
wondering on wonder.
Yes.
Oh, I want to dig into this. If I may, is that okay?
Of course.
Okay.
It's your show, man.
Well, it's our show. The three of this is our show.
Yeah.
A good, well, an unofficial mentor of mine, who, by the way, lives in Tennessee as well.
Oh,
He doesn't, he
connecting.
doesn't, he doesn't realize he's my unofficial mentor, but I've got great respect for Joe Calloway. And Joe Calloway talks about consistency being the highest commodity of a business, that when we consistently and I know it's a virtue. Consistency is a variation on reliability. What I'm hearing in the compass, and I think those four points, those directions are really singing to me, especially for me personally right now. Right? I guess my question is, and I haven't got the book yet, but I'm getting the book. I'm telling you now, I'm getting the book. Um, how once I set my compass,
Yeah.
and I'm presuming that's part of the process, like establishing your compass, right? I
Correct.
am a big believer in purpose. I'm a big believer in wonder. I'm a big believer in service, and I'm a big believer in excellence. So I'm getting the book. Um, how do is there a practice for consistently aligning with the compass?
There is, as a matter of fact, an entire assessment and an entire chapter. Yep. Because it really is about then taking this compass and laying it over, using it as a lens, using it as a battle cry, using it as the litmus test for everything in your life. And so I recommend doing it on a regular basis. But when I coach people or I work in companies or work with myself, I mean, truly, there's this idea. So, for example, service and purpose are two of my really high, these aren't actually my, I mean, these are kind of my compass, but when you go in, you see what my true compass is at the moment. And I think, I came to the Virtues Project. If you don't mind me sharing, this might take a second, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
I,
So I came to the Virtues Project in the midst of some trauma.
Mhm.
So it was back in 2003. And my son, first of all, I was told I was going to die in childbirth. And I talk about this in the book with my second child. Now, it was an alarmist physician who's no longer in practice. Obviously, here and I'm fine. It caused me to go into labor early, which then we were in a small town. My son had to be taken to another town to be in NICU. So again, fear into fear. And then we came home to our new construction home. And I went for a 20-minute walk. And in that amount of time, my husband went to change the baby, and our oldest we had safety gauges on his tub, not on ours. And we didn't realize that our water heater was set too high. And in about 10 seconds, he had suffered third-degree burns over the lower half of his body that were absolutely horrific. And so we ended up being in the burn unit in Madison, Wisconsin for about a month. And during that time, there was this, at that point, I didn't have a compass. At that point, I was a mom and I had failed because moms keep their kids safe. So if I had failed, then who was I? And I really felt untethered to everything, to the world. And I was trying to make my way back, but it was really, really hard. And I had one friend, Sally Glennon. Every time I talked to her, I felt better. Russell, I heard you talking about companioning on your LinkedIn, and or we call it companioning in it's that holding space, walking alongside someone. And that's what she was doing, and I didn't know it, which is really allowing me to show up. And she sat with me. She didn't rush me. It wasn't a scary place. She asked me questions and she always left me better. Other people would say just crazy things to me. Oh, I'm sure he loves being in the hospital. He gets extra shakes. No, this child is going through hell. They're giving him ketamine so that he forgets what's happening in this moment. So it was horrendous. And so I was like, okay, I don't know, but I need something. And I showed up as she quickly gave me this sort of overview of the virtues. And I showed up to the Virtues Project training, facilitator training. Terry Ron, Valerie Fox, and Betsy Lydell Smith, who has been my mentor ever since. And immediately people started recognizing something that I brought to the room that I didn't know in all of my 32 years that I had. So it was weird. They were saying, I see how much you love people. Like I can feel how much you already love the people in this room. And thank you for bringing that. And I was like, ew, gross. Like, what is this thing that is happening? And then the next thing was I feel like I can trust you. And they would tell me why. And excellence and all these words. And the tears started to come. And I realized in that moment, they were seeing me for who I was, not what I did. And it was that moment that changed everything for me. And I said, my life now is going to be about helping other people because we will get fired. We will have a divorce. Our children will leave the house. We will have deaths. We will have all job things that happen. And those are otherly things. Those are not the things that define who we are. But when we are anchored to our heart, when we know, when we declare, when we have that compass, we can always show up in that way. The love, the joy, the excellence, the all of those things that I brought to being a mom, it didn't go away when my son got hurt.
Right.
But the picture changed. So that became the essence for what all of this was about for me, is to help other people be able to stand, because I think we have a lot of wounded people and they don't see the best in others, let alone the best in themselves. So really the mission, the underlying mission here is to make sure that people become anchored so firmly to how they want to show up. And again, this idea of service and purpose, I wanted to die. I wanted to be so small. And that is not my calling in life. And so service and purpose are my call to action that says when something bad happens, Hilary, you know you're going to want to go turn Netflix on and pull the covers over your head. And you know that is not the magic. You know that is not who you are called to be. So this is your battle cry. You will get up, you will find a way to turn this into service and purpose. And for everybody, I invite them to do the same thing. What is it that helps you to lean into the magic that you were put on this earth to bring?
I got tons of thoughts. I'm gonna hand it to Russell because I gotta collect them. Because I'm so glad you shared that, though. I'm so exceedingly glad you shared that, Russell, so that I can collate questions and thoughts coming from it. Anything coming to mind?
So I'm so happy, Hilary, that those individuals saw you,
Mm,
be seen, because I was seen also, which jump started the things that I started doing. It is really powerful when we are acknowledged to the core of the principle of what we stand for, right? It's not just like, oh, you're so nice or you're so educated. Not materialistic things of this world, but they feel like deep principles. More so when you use the word earlier, you strive, right? You strive to be authentic. And I think strive is the key word, because do we ever reach the point of absolute authenticity, or is this always going to be a process? And what do we do in those moments when there's a disconnect, right, between how we see ourselves as authentic in the company of others, or the space does not feel authentic, so we cannot have meaningful conversations, or the intent is not authentic, right? How do we deal with all of those things which are like barriers to us just practicing being ourselves, like the true, maybe the word I want to actually say is the true highest spiritual selves that we are, right? It feels more spiritual than material.
Mm.
I'm always wondering about the balance there, right? Because I don't think, Hilary, that it is enough to just be authentic on an individual level. I always wonder about how we can practice it on a higher level to bring more people in, and maybe on a policy level, so we can actually have laws that serve us, right? Serves humanity versus serves just a chosen few, right? So I'm always in that space. So that was too many questions now.
Well, I,
Sorry.
no, I'm following where you're going with it, and I really do think, I mean, number one, I mean, it really does start with self before you can ever get to relationship before you, and there's actually a whole chapter on relationships because I do think that we're asking the wrong questions in this world. I think, for example, and I know we're not going to go into politics, but I really do just want to say, there's an argument that is, I'm for guns, I'm against guns. And so people come and they go at each other. And I believe that there's a meta question we're not asking. The meta question is, how do we keep our kids safe? And now, if we can all agree on that meta question, we're not arguing to be right, we're arguing for what is right. And so let's put everything on the table to do that. So I think that we are not asking the right questions from a human standpoint in those ways. But those relationships, that has to be very safe. You have to feel safe within yourself and safe with others to be able to stop, because for those who are listening, I'm putting my fingers together and pointing them and together. When we butt heads, that is an indication that there's a wound there, or there's a mistrust there, or something is happening. And so, what does it look like to find that peaceful space with others? So, I don't know how you'll respond to this when I say this, Russell, but boundaries, I think, are really a friend of mine, Jen Buzza, once said something to me, and I have never forgotten it. She said, boundaries aren't about other people, they're about you. Because if someone crosses your boundaries, it was never a boundary, it was a suggestion.
Nice.
And it's
Yeah.
so true, it is true. And there's another thing that stays in my head is Glennon Doyle wrote this book, Untamed, and she talks about this moment of having the door, of sitting in hot yoga, and she hated every second of it. And the teacher said, hang in there, don't leave, whatever. And she listened. And then she said at the end, she was ready to throw up and she went running to the door, and she said it dawned on her the door was unlocked the whole time. And so I would say to you, when we are authentic to self, we also have to make decisions, and this is part of the alignment about where our energy goes and when our energy goes. There are moments I can sit with people that I'm maybe not aligned with, and then there are moments when I'm tired, hungry, all of that, that I can't show up as myself, and the door's open. I get to leave that conversation. I don't have to stay in a conversation that pulls me away from who I want to be. And I think we forget that. We feel trapped sometimes, but it's really a trap we've made ourselves. So I really do. And I have to tell you, when I go into companies, this is the biggest thing. I always think this is the simplest thing. And this is the thing I see leaders writing down most often is I've said to them, you taking care of yourself, it's that oxygen mask thing. You taking care of yourself is the only way you get to show up as an authentic leader. So when you show up and you haven't slept and you haven't gotten ready and you haven't done all those things that make you show up better for your people, they are now not safe. They're not safe. It doesn't feel like safe space. Take those 5 minutes to get realigned. If you're not ready for a conversation, put the meeting off. But we force ourselves to go ahead and enter into these things that we have no business entering into when we're not detached. That word detached is so important. It doesn't mean that I'm not connected to you, but it means I'm in a place where I can have discernment because I'm not attached to the outcome in a way where I'm emotional. And
Mm.
so that to me, I've asked people for 3 days, you know what, I'm really hurt by this and I do want to get better. And I know you are uncomfortable to sit in the dissonance for 3 days. And that's a bummer. But I don't feel like I can show up and be safe for you right now because I'm too hurt. So you're going to need to give me 3 days my piece so that we can have a conversation that's actually productive. And I think that we have a society right now that is so hurt and so traumatized by so many things, including the things we see on TV every day. that we're showing up wounded and we wound others.
Okay, so you both have given, like, my brain right now is a cyclone. It is going. It like, yeah, yeah. Anyway, I think I've managed to harness the tail of the cyclone. Um, Here's a curiosity that I have right now. And I think both of you have mentioned directly or indirectly the whole notion of the relationships that we have, right? Um, I have long believed in having my Camelot. And my Camelot are those the band Shinedown in their song Human Radio used to say, I've got a handful of friends who can't be bought. If you tell them you're the king, you're probably not. And when I hear that line, I'm hearing a handful of friends that don't put up with any BS. They know who you are, they accept you for who you are. So here's where I'm going with my question, and the question is to both of you. And it's very relevant to where I am right now. I won't say I'm rebuilding my life, but I'm starting to, a lot of my life for the last 20, 25 years has been being responsible for things I was never should have been responsible for. Um, and a lot of work, you know? And so subsequently, my my Camelot tends to live elsewhere. So I got Russell in my Camelot over the. Um, but I didn't really have a steady Camelot here, and I'm building that. Like I'm finding people who get me, see me, don't put up with the BS when I'm not being me. Um, Hand in hand with that, I'm also starting to support, and Russell knows this from before the show went on air. I think 2026 is going to be about creativity and singing and artistic expressions for me. This is why authenticity is a very timely subject for me, right? Um, I guess my question to both of you is, and it might be rhetorical, but it also might be nuanced. Anyway, how important is it? It's twofold. How important is it to find that trusted circle who sees you, gets you, calls you out when you need to be called out in the most loving of ways? How important is that? And more importantly, how do you find those people? Here's a
Hillary,
question.
Hillary, you want to go first?
It's up to you, Russell. Why don't you go first?
Okay. How do we find those persons? For me, I allowed every challenge to come into my life. Because without the tests and the challenges, there's no way that I would need anyone, no? So the issue is there. I realized I can't deal with it myself. And through a process of elimination, the people who rose and started standing beside and behind me, they came slowly, slowly. Many have fallen off the wagon, right? Or they served a moment, and when their service was done for me, they fell off the wagon. That sounds so bad, like as if I kicked them out. Like I didn't. But our paths just moved separate ways. There are individuals, however, who have withstood the test of time. Mm-hmm. And have remained with me, and I consider them priceless, because it's not only about calling me on the BS, because that they sense right away, right? But when I am lost, actually, or I am considering something inappropriate, they call me back to center.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, so these individuals are worth I find the investment of time and all the sacrifices to build those relationships, because they become what feels to me like true family, right? Some people in my circle are family members, and those relationships have been cultivated intensely. Some are not. They became family, right? And the reason why I say family is because it's a reciprocal relationship, in the sense of they call me out, and I have the privilege also of calling it out for them because we're anchors to each other, right? They're not just anchors for me, but we all anchor almost like a spider's web. It's a very wide net, right? So the section of the net I'm in has a few individuals who keep that net secure for others, right? So yeah, and I think it is so important, not just for women. I mean, sorry, especially for women, but not just for us. I think men have to learn how to cultivate that on a very the way women do, right? I think there's something to be learned in that gender difference we have.
Well,
What do
and
you
to
think,
that,
Hilary?
yeah,
Sorry.
but to that point, before I forget, because my stroke brain will let it go. But I like my guyness, but I do know that guyness brings its own challenges because most of my Camelot are women, right? The guys in my yeah, it's anyway. Love to hear what you think, Hilary.
Well, now I want to go off on the guyness thing because and I will come back to that answer, but I had this shower moment. We have those shower moments. They're the most pure moments there was this person, I coach both men and women and in corporate settings. And so I had, for the first time, a guy that I was working with who said, I don't think that I can work with you anymore. I'm getting less confident instead of more confident.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, that broke me because that's not, I've never heard that before. I've always heard the opposite. And it's been about 6 months. And I was in the shower yesterday and I went, oh, what he meant was I was taking him to a place that was vulnerable and felt scary. And I believe that until you reach that, you can't stand in confidence. So I was like, aha, he was feeling vulnerable. It wasn't that he wasn't feeling confident. And that differentiation was really important to me. So I look at vulnerability, I looked it up one time and it talked about a weakness, of course, is the first way it talks about it. It talks about it being a castle and that a castle is vulnerable when people can get in. And I was like, well, if
Right.
I'm a castle, I want to lower the drawbridge. I want people to get in. I want there to be a party. I want, I want to have fun. Be careful, right?
Yeah.
But to be vulnerable. And so, and then I will say so this stems into what you're saying. I look at friendships now at 52 differently than I did when I was little. I
Right.
think, or younger. I think when I was younger, I felt like I needed to find that person or the people that were going to be my ride and dies forever and ever and ever and ever. And that somehow there was something wrong with me if I didn't have those long, long friendships. And here's what happens is when you are somebody who grows all the time, I always say my anxiety stopped the day that I realized I was still going to be growing, hopefully the day I died. And I was like, oh, I'm never done. I always have a new moment to be a different person. And when I say a different person, I don't mean inauthentic, but to realign, to take a different
Yeah.
trail, to blaze something that looks different than what it is now. I've been through a lot of iterations. I think biologically, every 7 years, our bodies renew, regenerate, our cells are different, and we're new people. And so I don't watch out as much for a permanent Camelot, if you will. I look instead, I call my people that I love family, friends that are family, so they're family. But and there are a couple of them where I'm like, oh my gosh, forever and ever and ever and ever. But I also, there's a moment in my life that they have a lesson. We may not align on everything, but I understand the gifts we're giving to each other in that moment. And I've really, in my opinion, worked on and gotten pretty decent at being able to discern, which I think, by the way, if you ask me the most important leadership quality you can have, it's discernment. When is it an excuse? When do you need grace? When do discernment? I've gotten pretty good at discerning when I feel off on my compass and
mm,
who I can learn from because of that. And then how can I relationship with them? I don't say network, I relationship with them because it is a give and it is a take. And I have that's where I find the beauty of my friendships is the people who will I used to like, "Bleh, I'm going to give you all of it and can you handle it?" Right? And there people will either run or stay. And now I've learned to take the steps with them little by little to engage in something that is a true relationship, that is a give and a take, that is an ebb and a flow. And there's just an energy around it. So I don't know if that answered very eloquently, but I see it shift, and it has to do with my admiration for and my growth at the time, and then who I see that I can give back to. Because if I end up in a relationship where I feel like I'm just getting to, that's not relationshiping to me. So those are the ones that I have a couple great ones right now. I have one that is only a year old, my friend Nick Demas, and we are so unlikely. He's a Broadway producer, and I'm an off like how would we, and he's a ride or die right now. We talk to each other just about every day. We call each other on our stuff, all of that. But it's because we're both in this moment with our career where we've discovered that we're playing small in certain things, and that we know there's something more, and it's scary to step out on a cliff knowing there's something more. And so we are relationshiping and supporting in that way.
Mhm.
I love the notion of relationshiping. That is really cool. And both of you help me. I'm a very conceptual. Like I've got to see imagery for me to make sense of things. Um, but what I'm walking away with, is this notion that the dancer in me, because there's a big dancer in me. Um, getting back to salsa. I'm actually going to be marrying boxa and salsa and calling it boxa. Um, but I'm under. Well, I didn't understand this before, but it's helpful for me to image that there are people that I'm going to want to dance with for brief periods of time who are going to be the right dancer. There are going to be people who I'll always want to go back for another dance with. That we dance with the people that have the most meaning for us, and that's very useful for me um, going forward. We're going to. I think we're going to have you back as a guest because we're gonna put a bow on this thing at this point in time. Um, Normally, what we do when we kind of wrap it up doesn't mean we got only 3 minutes left. Just we're in that final stages. Um, but we're gonna ask each of us, or I guess I'm gonna ask each of us to share some thoughts that either we feel in this conversation need to be doubled down on, or it's maybe something we haven't brought up. I definitely want to hear how to get the book, right? Um, but yeah, some final thoughts. I've already just one popped into my head just then that I'm ready to go, but I'm also willing to yield to anybody else who has an idea you'd like to offer up, either a double down on something or something we haven't addressed in the conversation thus far. And I can go first.
Go
Go.
first.
Okay. So one of the things that I've been into over the last year and a half is Stoicism. And I'm aware of a quote that I can't recite verbatim, but Epictetus said, decide on the person that you want to be, then do everything necessary to be that.
That's
That
right.
sounds to me like the compass. I'm also reminded of a quote. I think I might have mentioned this earlier in the show, but from a Star Trek episode where the engineer was talking about somebody that they had met who pretended they were heroic until they became heroic. So
Mhm.
what I'm walking away with is this notion of authenticity is not simply about I am what I am, live with it.
Yes.
It's more about I'm working on being this person, that I'm building a better Barry. The Barry I know I need to be, I'm practicing on that. And those things, and I'm going to get the book, but those things as my compass that tell me, ooh, you're veering off to this other version, you know, I need to consistently be reflecting on, am I building that more noble, that better, that service oriented, purposeful, joyful, fun singing Barry. That's what's occurring to me. That the thought that we need to have a compass, and your book addresses that, We need to consistently go to that. Both of those speak to the sage wisdom of Epictetus in saying, decide what you're going to be, then be it. Also, Marcus Aurelius said, stop wasting time arguing about what a good man is. Be one.
Nice.
Right? So that's my thought. Opening the door to either of you right now.
Hilary, you want to take it?
Sure. This may just take a second,
No
but
worries.
I would like to share, as I think about it, the most important thing to me, I was not a camper. My husband took me camping and I fell in love with it. He was very smart, by the way, about the way he did it, because when we would go camping, he would do all the cooking, set up, take down, and wash the dishes. So I wanted to go camping every weekend. So just a note to anybody out there, it was brilliant. And he introduced this concept of you leave the campsite better than you find them. And that has become my motto for relationshiping too, is that you leave people better than you find them. And so I would love to, there's a circuitousness about the book that I have. And one is in the dedication and then how I end. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to share both.
Please.
But first, the dedication is to all the little girls who spent too many hours trying to fit in, told they were too much, yet made to feel not enough. You are exactly who you are meant to be, right here, right now. Just wait until you meet the you who's waiting for you as you grow. She already loves you for the strength, spirit, and spark you gave her. She's making you proud, I promise. And the close is my daughter, who's now 20. And my daughter says, faith got determined as we were talking about adulthood and what it looked like at my setup here. And she said, you have to lean into the magic until it becomes feasible. She went on, Mom, you have to take a leap of faith. You have to believe in the magic of you. You have to believe in the magic of your path. You have to work hard to live in the magic. Yes, you have to lean into the magic until the life you want becomes feasible. So I love that because to me, there is an importance in the handoff and the belief that we give to the next generation. I know that's something you believe in as well, Russell. And so there's a scene in Barbie that really upset my daughter. And it is when the maker of Barbie is talking to Barbie and shows all of these Barbie dolls throughout history and says, we women stand place, we mothers stand, I'm going to cry telling you this, stand in place so that our daughters can see how far they come. My daughter turned to me and she said, don't you ever stand in place. I want you to continue to blaze your trail because it gives me the strength I need to know I can also do it. And I think that that's my big thought to everyone is the world needs you. Like there is a unique special magic that each one of you has, and we don't believe it. And I'm sorry that we don't believe it, but let's try to get to it. Let's see it in each other because that's where wholeness and healing and unity and humanity and dignity come from.
Wow. Mic drop.
I know. I can't follow that.
You're going to. That was, and your daughter is a torchbearer of wisdom.
Hilary, I want our daughters to meet. I have a 20-year-old who has a heart ablaze, okay, and full of adventure and is not bending to the will of anybody. And someday you and I will cross paths and our daughters will cross paths and that's it. The whole world will burn.
Something will shift. I accept
um, so yeah, that share was it's an emotional one, Hilary, and thank you for being very vulnerable. It's not easy to share those parts of us, you know. But what I wanted to add to what you were saying was when your husband brought you on those camping trips and he said, we always leave the space better than when we arrived, right? It reminded me of the concept of for the longest time, I was a descendant. I had ancestors, and I was a descendant of somebody, and I had to, you know, live up to that greatness of all of these women who have been carving paths left, right, and center. But I'm going to become an ancestor very soon, and the transferring of that duty, right, and privilege and responsibility comes with this living of a life, I think, where I have the I have to tap into everything that I am. So I'm as authentic as I can be, so I can hear all of past, present, and future, right? So there's a transfer of knowledge from there to the coming. But I think it is through authenticity that we actually get to listen very well. Because I think authenticity is also an internal quality, right? Which manifests itself in the way we hold space for people. Hence, when you meet all of those heads of companies and then you just start speaking to them, it's they take down all of these notes because it's almost like it's a siren song, right? It's a truth that you're giving to them. Be authentic so you can serve. Be authentic so you can be present. Be authentic and change the spaces and change the world and change the future. So I think that's what it's too much. Hilary, you've made me so emotional.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. But I wanted to also praise you for tackling an idea and a concept which if you make a Google search on it, there's like what, 5 million pop-ups, right? And on top of all of that, you have to rise slightly more and say, no, there is a compass and there's a chance for some of us to realign to greater principle. So it's helpful. The book is helpful. I haven't read it yet, but like Barry is saying, it's something which we might want to look at. So would you kindly, Barry, I'm going to take over this part. Would you kindly tell us how to find you, where to find you, and stuff like that, no?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so honored. I want to thank both of you for your generosity and the time that you have spent really listening, understanding the curiosity, and also just the mission spoke to me the first time I talked to Barry, this idea of unity. I do think it's vital. It is so needed. So thank you. Well, you have a few options right now, and there's a long story about it, but my publisher, I'm available on Amazon at the moment. There is a publication, the book, the hard copy is only in the United States at the moment. But you can get the ebook anywhere in the world. So the ebook is available on there. If you do, there's hilarybilbery.com is where you can also see me and chat with me about things. And then I also have a company with my partner called Peak, PEQ dash performance.com. And that's where we talk a little bit more about the consulting business side of what we do.
Right.
Fabulous. Well, I have not downloaded a single ebook, but I've been planning to, so yours will be the first. I'm reminded, I wasn't planning to say anything else, but both of you have just reminded me of a prayer I said at my sister's grave, who I never met, who lived and died before I was born. And it was a time some years back when I was searching for path and answers, still am to some degree. But the words that came back to me in that prayer, and it was at midnight, and the breeze was blowing. It was a really surreal moment. But was everything you soulfully desire requires everything you soulfully are. And that's what I'm walking away from, is that who are we? Who do we want to be? And then bring it. So I am so thankful for this conversation, Hilary. And repeat one more time, your website is?
hilarybilbery.com.
So that's HIL, one L.
One L of a girl.
Yeah.
HILARYBILBREY.com. Yeah, and I love it. I really sincerely, I love relationshiping. So I do want to say, LinkedIn is generally where I hang out the most. And
Mhm.
so I love having people connect because I want to support others. I want to know what they're doing. I want to elevate, I want to amplify. So please do know that that is a sincere thing.
Oh, it's not hard to tell. I'm doing the peace sign with the planet right between. I'm noticing the light is shining like it's the sun shining on the planet right now. So yeah, I'm saying peace. What are you folks going to say as we bid adieu to people watching?
Oh, I love it. You're rocking out over there. I love
Always.
gratitude.
All right. Bye, folks.